Last thing I want to talk about is the future. We are going to get emergency funds. People are going to be able to pay rent or expenses. But the thing I'm more concerned with in the next 2 to 3 years, maybe a little more, is a lot of small businesses permanently closing. After the last recession, a lot of people didn't take risks and our entrepreneurship rate plummeted. The other thing that happened, millennials didn't trust the stock market, so they stopped investing in stocks. We'll also see consolidation because a lot of companies are going to go under and stronger ones are going to buy them up. We're actually going to have a much more concentrated economy. It's already super concentrated. I wrote a piece called Why Monopoly is the Future and We Love It. Last time Circuit City goes out of business, Best Buy becomes the only one in that category. When you have a mature business, sometimes it doesn't support competition. You can find substitutes later on, so you might order from Amazon instead of going into Best Buy. The other thing that I think is going to start happening in the next couple of years is domestic manufacturing of critical goods. In fact, what's happening today is a great argument for subsidizing crops, which I'm not a big fan of subsidizing any industry, but the last thing you want is to be dependent for food on other countries, just like we've been dependent for medicine and medical equipment on China. No more of that. All that stuff is coming back. So I think that's going to create some opportunities for companies that start manufacturing here. We were already talking about doing that with tech, and the maintenance of all of those things, the installation, the distribution, the sales will create opportunities. So I'm really optimistic about that. And then in the long term, there's some really interesting things. First of all, I think we discovered the real Green New Deal. This is it. Coronavirus is the Green New Deal. This is the solution to climate change that nobody wants to discuss, not even activists. Everyone wants to consume. Nobody wants to conserve. But if you look at the statistics, the emissions in California have plummeted. Pollution in Wuhan has disappeared. You can see it from aerial photos. All of this stuff that's been driving our economy, when you put a pause to it, everything cleans up. And there were videos of wild animals coming back to all of these places, dolphins returning to Venice because now there's no more boats going back and forth. And I don't think we're ready to confront the idea of stopping doing stuff because that's not how capitalism works. And for better or worse, we all live in capitalism. So I think we are going to kick off a level of conservation because fewer people are going to be going into work. Why should companies spend on office space when people can be just as productive from home? We're also going to speed up universal health care. People are realizing that not having coverage at a time like this is really bad. So I think it gives political momentum to start talking about that. What form it takes, is going to be debated, but it's going to be sped up. The other thing that I've written about in Econovation back in 2011, this move to remote healthcare just got accelerated massively. All kinds of barriers to remote healthcare are falling. People are going to be much more open to making that the primary care mechanism. If you listen to my healthcare series, it's one of the key ways to make universal healthcare affordable. The other thing I expect to happen, and this happens after every crisis, is the government gets more powerful and it gets bigger. Some people might like that, others might not. I guess it depends on who's in charge. If you don't think the government does a great job now, well, it's going to be doing more jobs in the future. Just like after 9/11, we got the Patriot Act, which gave us spying on our own citizens. We're probably going to have some powers given to government that it didn't have before under the guise of protecting us. You might not be allowed in certain places with a fever because you might be contagious. That's happening in Asia where they're testing people. Now, they're doing it during crisis, but it's perfectly imaginable for them to do it in other non-crisis situations. Already now, a lot of bars scan your driver's license and it goes to a database that shows your record among other bars. So if you ever got thrown out or into a bar fight or didn't pay your tab or anything else, they're going to know and they can ban you from that bar. That's happening in private industry, and we can use the government to regulate that. Who are you going to use to regulate the government when they start doing it? And at some point, who knows? Maybe they're going to install some chips where they can track your vitals to see if you're contagious, or make you have an app like China does that tracks you. So they're going to be able to contain you in place because they know exactly where you are at all times. If people are scared enough and they're not conscious enough, especially now, these are all possibilities. Again, I'm going to repeat this. This is really important. You cannot pass permanent change during a temporary crisis. The thing I expect to happen is we're going to maybe start exploring things like a universal basic income, which is kind of what's being trialed right now, where people are just getting regular payments of $2,000 or $1,000 a month to sustain them. Suddenly there's an argument that wasn't in the popular domain before, maybe with Andrew Yang, but not otherwise. The other thing that's a little more philosophical, but just as important, I am convinced our old economy in some ways is over. And I've been writing about this a long time in Happiness Will Not Be Downloaded, and then other articles whose titles I can't remember. Maybe I'll link to them. This whole crisis has exposed the futility of a lot of our occupations and preoccupations. So if you don't make, distribute, sell, or service a necessary product or service, you're basically an entertainer. You're out there making things at the whim of fickle patrons. Everything that most people do is optional. There are only a few businesses that were identified as essential. And now we know what they are because people have voted with their wallets. They know what's essential. They know that Amazon deliveries is essential. They know medicine is essential. Hospitals, construction, all the Mexicans we're trying to keep out, they're way more important than a lot of the people sitting in the offices, paying them for delivery. The way our market economy works is by valuing experience and education. Now, what if I gave you another way to value who gets paid what? What if it's based on how essential they are versus non-essential? I think that changes the paradigm completely. Because the people providing you food, the people picking up the garbage so the city doesn't get infested with rats, those people are way more valuable than anyone sitting working from home Skyping or some idiot making videos. So maybe this is an opportunity to recalibrate value, economic value, market value, and what is a market need, an essential need versus what isn't. It's funny that Minnesota classified grocery store employees as emergency workers, granting them free childcare as a result. That's amazing. And I think that's going to seep in maybe a little bit. And, maybe a lot of people just go back to what they were doing and they remain unaffected. But this plants a seed at the very least. The most important thing I think we could do, and I'm thinking it'll be a missed opportunity. I hope it isn't, but now is an opportunity for a resetting. What I mean by that is we all recognize there's huge inequality in our economy. And I don't know that equality is a cause of problems more than a symptom. Certainly excessive inequality is not good because at some point you don't have enough people buying goods. So even the rich people don't want that to be the case. So this is an unprecedented opportunity to equalize our economy because now you have all of these corporations that need to be bailed out, that are going to need billions and billions of dollars. Make it conditional. And one of those conditions should be giving more power, money, and capital to employees. Power in terms of putting them on boards so at least they have a say, maybe even the community gets put on the board wherever this company operates or has distribution. I'm also talking about giving them more ownership in their companies. Equity is essential. That's wealth. And tie the amount of shares given to executives to the amount of shares given to employees. That would cap inequality because compensation and options and all these other things went through the roof while employees' salaries and compensation kind of stayed level. It's not crazy to ask companies that are taking money from the government for some of these conditions. It might be a way to walk away from this virus with a much fairer economy. That's it. Hope you enjoyed this series. Don't forget to subscribe, sign up to the mailing list, and get 2 great episodes on hoarding and gouging and the other one on enemies. Those are going on the Patreon, which is only $5 a month. Anyway, review it on iTunes or YouTube and share it with others. I'm Steve Faktor for the McFuture.